Penguin Random House Audio presents Idaho by Emily Ruskovich. Read for you by Justine Eyre. 2004. They never drove the truck, except once or twice a year to get firewood. It was parked just up the hill in front of the woodshed, where it collected rain in the deep dents on the hood and mosquito larvae in the rainwater. That was the way it was when Wade was married to Jenny, and that's the way it is now that he is married to Anne. Anne goes up there sometimes to sit in the truck. She waits until Wade is busy so that he won't notice that she's gone. Today, she comes here under the pretense of getting firewood, dragging a blue sled over the mud and grass and patches of snow. The woodshed isn't far from the house, but it's hidden from view by a stand of ponderosa pines. She feels like she is trespassing, like none of this is hers to see. The truck is parked on a rare space of flat land, an unlikely shelf carved into the mountainside. In front of the woodshed, around the truck, a few loose bricks lie here and there in the grass and snow. Spindles of mangled wire lean against the trees. Hanging from a long larch limb are two thick ropes that sway opposite each other now, but look as if they might have once been connected by a flat board, a child's swing. It is March, sunny and cold. Anne gets into the driver's seat and shuts the door quietly. She pulls the seatbelt across her body, then rolls the window down so that several droplets splatter on her lap. She touches the wet spots with her fingertip, connecting them with lines in her mind to make a picture on her thigh. The picture reminds her of a mouse, or at least a child's drawing of a mouse, with a triangle face and a long, curlicued tail. 9 years ago, when Wade was still married to Jenny, and both of his daughters were still alive, a mouse had crawled along the top of the truck's exhaust pipe into the engine compartment and built its nest on the manifold. She thinks of how strange it is that Wade probably remembers that mouse, remembers the sound of it skittering under the hood, and yet he's forgotten his first wife's name. Or so it seems sometimes. But the mouse is still very much alive in his memory. A few years after Anne and Wade married, Anne found a pair of deerskin gloves in a toolbox, high on a shelf in a closet. They were much nicer than the work gloves Wade usually wore, and seemed to be brand new, except for the odor of something burned. That was how she learned about the mouse in the first place. She asked why he kept the gloves stored in their closet instead of using them. Wade told her that he wanted to preserve the smell. What smell is that? The smell of a rodent's nest that caught on fire. The last smell in his daughter's hair. It was a long time ago now that he said things like that. He stopped talking about the details of his daughter's death once he saw how much Anne held on to them. He probably thinks she's forgotten about the gloves. It's been so many years. But she hasn't. He keeps them in the filing cabinet with his papers in his office upstairs. She's opened the drawer just enough to see them. That mouse had probably been in the truck the whole winter, during that last year that Wade was married to Jenny, that last year that May was alive and June was safe. Anne thinks of the mouse going back and forth in the snow between the truck and the barn, hauling mouthfuls of hay, or insulation, or tufts of stuffing from the dogs' beds, making its nest bigger and having babies in it once spring arrived. Some of the babies probably died early on and were absorbed by the nest, their tiny bones like shards of straw themselves. And other mice came, too. You could hear them, moving under the hood if you put your ear against it. The little girls liked doing that. Well, at least Anne imagines they did. One day in August, the whole family got into the truck. Wade at the steering wheel, where Anne is sitting now, Jenny next to him, their daughters June and May, 9 and 6, crammed in back with a jug of lemonade and styrofoam cups, which they carved pictures into with their fingernails. The girls probably wanted to ride in the truck bed, but their mother would have said it was not safe on the highway. So they sat, facing each other in the cab with their backs against the windows, bumping their knees, probably fighting. They forgot all about the mice. They didn't notice anything at first, driving slowly over the dirt roads. But once they reached the highway in their town of Ponderosa, a smell like decay and burning hair, skin and seeds sizzling on a hot engine, entered through the vent and filled the whole cab of the truck until the little girls were gagging and laughing and pushing their freckled noses out their windows. They had to drive on with their windows down, tolerating the smell, for the hour drive through the Nez Valley, past Athol and Kerrywood, then up the long road nearly to the top of Loweel, the mountain where the birchwood was already cut and piled, ready to be loaded. Their hair and clothes and Wade's gloves held the burned smell in their fibers. Anne pictures June and May. They wait in the sun while their mother rolls the birch logs onto the truck bed and their father stacks them there. The girls lean against the tires, slapping horseflies on their legs, pouring lemonade into the dust. The smell would have been there on the way back, too. It is the one constant. It connects two things in Anne's mind that she can't manage to connect otherwise: the drive up the mountain and the drive back down. The drive back down is the part Anne comes here to try to understand. There would have been things Wade had to consider before he could take control and go for help. Practical things. Shutting the tailgate, for example, so the logs wouldn't roll out. He would have had to remember to hold the handle up and then push in. There was a trick to it, in order to lock the tailgate. That he would remember, that his fingers could do what they were supposed to do, even in the midst of his horror, has something to do with the reason Anne loves him. One day, perhaps, everything will be gone from his mind except the trick of the tailgate latch, and Anne will love him still. She thinks of how easy it would have been to get lost on the way back down, since they'd gotten lost so badly on the way up. How could anything have looked familiar? The narrow, grassy roads, the crudely made road signs nailed to trees. That he'd read them an hour before seemed impossible to her. All of it seemed impossible. The summer sky, the snapping of twigs under the truck's tires, the smell of grease and honeysuckle, Jenny's breath fogging the window. Anne has had to imagine most of it, everything beyond the facts Wade told her or she heard on TV. She did try very hard during those early days to keep the radio and TV off so that everything she knew from Wade. What Wade wanted to tell her, she would keep. But she wouldn't let herself go searching. She wouldn't let herself ask. But all of that is different now that Wade is forgetting. She wants to ask him if he and Jenny spoke before his memory is lost for good. Did Jenny look out the side window or straight ahead? Or did she look at him? At what point did he rip down the rearview mirror? No, Anne thinks. It isn't even the drive back. It is his getting into the truck at all. Opening the door and getting in. Jenny there with the cup of lemonade shaking in her hand. Or maybe not shaking. Maybe perfectly still. Maybe the cup empty. Maybe the droplets of lemonade spilled on her lap like the droplets of water now on Anne's thigh, in the shape of something harmless, something that the child in the back seat might have drawn. Anne runs her hand over the dashboard, and the soft, moist pollen of last summer sticks to her palm. It is all put together for her, here. The rearview mirror is up again, glued in place, and there's a dream catcher thrown around it, with 2 fluorescent feathers hanging down. The carpet has been shampooed, the right back seat replaced entirely, with one that looks like the original on the left, only a brighter shade of blue and missing the little holes where the stuffing came out and where the girls might have once stuck their fingers. Anne turns the key to let the engine run while she sits here. She breathes deeply. 9 years, and the smell of the mouse's nest is gone, but every now and then, when she shifts in the driver's seat and the dust rises from the cushions, she catches what might be the hint of that old smell, distant and thinly sweet, leather and burning grass. Though, of course, it could also be the controlled spring fires down in the valley fields far away. Anne and Wade had been married for 8 years.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?